Good morning, P10 Ice Daily Show. Happy Friday morning. Hope your Friday is off to a great start. Welcome to the P10 Ice Daily Show. Happy to be here today. My name is Alan. Happy to be your host here on Fitness Athlete Friday, starting a little bit earlier today so my wife can go to the gym later on. We were on Fitness Athlete Friday. We talk all things CrossFit, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, endurance sports, running, biking, swimming, triathletes, you name it. If you have somebody that's recreationally active, we're going to talk about a topic related to that person on Fridays. We think it's the best day of the week. Some courses coming your way from the Fitness Athlete Division. I do want to say, unrelated to the Fitness Athlete Division, we are going to release probably about 20 tickets to the 2024 Ice Sampler Monday at noon Eastern. So that's this coming Monday. That's Monday the 22nd at noon Eastern. We have a wait list. We have been emailing people all week, opening up the wait list for them. And it looks like all the people who jumped on the wait list will probably end up having about 20 total tickets left. We've doubled our capacity for 2024. We're moving it out to Carson City, Nevada. I went out there last week. It's going to be a fantastic time right on Lake Tahoe. So much hiking and stuff to do. Carson City is a wonderful town. It's going to be a really fantastic weekend. So if you're not on the wait list and you want to get on the wait list to be able to get a guaranteed ticket today, you should email info@ice.physio right after you hear this podcast live. Otherwise, look for Monday, the 22nd of May at noon Eastern to grab the last of the tickets. After that, it's gone. We're going to be at full capacity. We won't be able to take anybody else. So if you've been wanting to come, make sure you choose one of those options to get a ticket. Some courses coming your way from the Fitness Athlete Division. On June 5th, we have Clinical Management of Fitness Athlete Essential Foundation starting. That is our 8-week online entry-level experience to all things fitness athlete, taught by yours truly, Mitch Babcock, Kelly Benfey, and Guillermo Contreras. That is a fantastic course. If you've never done any of the stuff we talk about here on Fitness Athlete Friday, if you've dabbled a little bit, or even if you've been doing it a very long time, there's still stuff for you in that course. We talk a lot about the movements themselves. We talk a lot about the research supporting their use, and we kind of get into a broader spectrum of what's available when we talk to athletes in the gym. We talk about diet, nutrition, sleep, recovery, and we provide a lot of research supporting the use of functional fitness, CrossFit style exercise in all populations, not just the recreationally active adult, but also younger teen athletes and kids, older adults, pregnant and postpartum moms, as well as adaptive athletes. So if you want to check out that course, June 5th is your next chance to join us. It always sells out. It always sells out. It sells out about 1 to 2 weeks in advance. So we're getting ready to enter that window right now. So if you've been wanting to grab a ticket, you should grab it. It always sells out. It's sold out every time for the past couple years. So don't miss that. Your chances at Fitness Athlete Live, you have 2 coming up in June. June 10th and 11th, you can join Zach Long up in Brooklyn, New York for Fitness Athlete Live. And a couple weeks later, June 24th and 25th, you can join him in Loveland, Ohio. That's right outside of Cincinnati, also for Fitness Athlete Live. So that's where you can catch us on the road and online the next couple weeks. Today's topic, why do we do whatever in functional fitness? Why do we snatch? Why do we overhead squat? Why do we do handstand push-ups? What's so functional about a handstand push-up? Blah, 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 right? We've heard these critiques. We maybe hear these from athletes in the gym who struggle with these movements. Why do we do this stupid stuff? We definitely hear these critiques a lot from folks on social media who are kind of running their jaws about functional fitness and CrossFit. What is the point of having a soccer mom do a snatch? What is the point of having a person that spends their entire life on a computer looking at spreadsheets, maybe somebody like me, do an overhead squat or handstand push-ups or double unders? What is the point, right? We hear this again and again and again. We hear these critiques. So I want to start today by acknowledging these critiques and talking about what they are. But then I want to give some answers and solutions. Particularly, I want to give you 3 answers and solutions that these movements are not inherently more dangerous. They are just as functional as a squat or a deadlift. And a third answer that is maybe often overlooked. So let's start with the critiques, right? The common critique is complex barbell movements, or even barbell movements in general, should not be included in a training program for a recreational gym goer. Of Some gyms no longer program snatch and overhead squat, or maybe handstand push-ups or muscle ups. Maybe some gyms have gone completely away from the barbell. We have certainly seen barbell-free CrossFit. We have seen different training programs like Orange Theory pop up that do not have a barbell, that maybe use dumbbells. We've seen other programs that just use body weight. We know different types of boot camp offerings are maybe entirely weight free and just focus on cardio and body weight. But we know there is that critique of these movements and the removal of them from a training program. So barbell free gyms, including CrossFit affiliates that simply don't program these movements anymore. This is a question we get a lot in Fitness Athlete Essential Foundations. Week 7 is our introduction to Olympic weightlifting, and we started what we think is gentle with the overhead squat, right? The overhead squat is the primer movement for the snatch. And then in advanced concepts, you get into power clean, squat clean, power snatch, squat snatch, and you get really deep into the weeds on Olympic weightlifting, which is part of CrossFit training, but also obviously translates directly to the person doing Olympic weightlifting. We also see some gyms pull out movements, more advanced gymnastic movements, handstand push-ups, muscle-ups out. And the argument is my members can't really do these, so they get frustrated. So I just pull them out. Like most people can do pull-ups and most people can ride a bike and do burpees. So we just keep it simple. The critique there against that, that I'm going to jump ahead to is, can your athletes not do that stuff? Because you don't program it, or because you don't program it, they can't do it, right? When you don't challenge folks to unlock new ranges of motion, new patterns, we often find they don't get better at doing that stuff. So is the reason they can't do it because you don't program it? Probably, right? So that's my argument there. But ultimately, all these critiques are arriving at the same question at the end of the day. What value do these movements have for the average person? For the person that wakes up and gets in their car and goes to an office and answers emails and works on a computer, what value does an overhead squat or a snatch have for that person? For the person, maybe the person running around taking care of their kids all day, what value does handstand push-ups have for that person? Like, we just need to develop some sort of baseline of strength and aerobic capacity for that person, and then they'll be good for the rest of their life. Like, what value do these things have? So let's answer some of those critiques. The first is that the argument is that snatching, overhead squatting, some of these more advanced gymnastics are somehow more inherently dangerous than other movements, than a deadlift, than a squat, than a kettlebell swing, than riding a bike, than running. And we simply don't have any evidence to support that. If you have a study that shows that, please share it with me. I look at 5 to 10 research articles every day in this space, and I've yet to find anything showing any shred of evidence to that argument. We simply don't have any evidence that says removing or including the snatch in functional fitness programming leads to higher or lower levels of injury. We have no line of research like that. We do have a lot of robust evidence now, specifically in the CrossFit space, or what's called high intensity functional training in the research on injury incidence in CrossFit. And what does shake out? The stuff that always shakes out, right? That injury seems to be linked to training volume, that folks who are more likely to be injured are either overtraining or undertraining. That we know specifically in CrossFit training, there is a sweet spot of going 4 to 6 days a week to make your body as resilient as possible to the movements you're going to encounter. That when you're somebody who goes 1 day a week, you go on Monday and you don't go again until next Thursday, you're more likely to be injured. On the other side of that continuum, overtraining is a factor. The person that goes 7 days a week, the person that goes Monday to Saturday at the gym and then does CrossFit in their garage or at Planet Fitness or something on Sunday, the person that never takes a day off is also more likely to be injured. And people in the middle seem to do well. The other risk factor that really shakes out is being a man, of having a giant ego, of when we look at specifically coaching and its effect on injury incidence. Women seem much more likely to listen to the CrossFit coach and incorporate the feedback given, both on improving movement quality and technique, but also on suggestions for weight for lifting and workouts. They are much more likely to peel some weight off the barbell and scale the workout than men are. Men are much more likely to ignore the coach, lift too much weight, and or ignore technique, and therefore encounter a higher level of injury than women. So we have a lot of good studies on that now. Maybe 5 to 10 years ago, we did not have a lot of good data in this space, but we have a lot now, and that's what it says. And again, none of it says snatching is more dangerous, overhead squats are more dangerous, handstand push-ups are more dangerous. So we need to let that go until the research emerges that says to the contrary. The other argument here is that these movements are not functional. They don't translate to real life. And what we're seeing a lot now in sport is that a lot of youth athletes, college athletes, for a long time have been doing power cleans, have been doing squats, and some, not all, have been doing deadlifts. But now what we're seeing is a transition to doing things like the overhead squat. Why? Overhead squat demands a really vertical torso. It trains a lot of strength in a vertical torso position, which translates to a lot of sports. Football, volleyball, basketball, you name it. Most of our sports are played with a vertical torso, and we need to produce force in that vertical torso position. So movements like the overhead squat directly address that. They also directly address a lot of mobility, strength, stability issues, right? When you watch that athlete do something like an overhead squat and their elbows are bent and they're quarter squatting and they're struggling, right? You learn a lot about that athlete in a very short amount of time. You learn a lot about their ankle mobility, their shoulder stability, core strength, thoracic mobility, you name it. You can learn a lot just watching them struggle with that overhead squat, right? Even at a light weight or with a PVC pipe. So we're talking about moving a large load the longest distance. That is the definition of a functional movement by CrossFit. But that's also what we're doing in sport. How can we move the longest load the largest distance? How can we get a lineman in football as strong as possible? How can we get a volleyball player to produce power of the vertical torso when they jump up to maybe block the ball or something like that over the net? So we're seeing a lot more youth athletes and college athletes train overhead squats and snatches in addition to the traditional squat, clean, deadlift. So we need to be familiar with these movements because these athletes are going to be coming into the clinic needing help with these, right? When we look at movements in gyms that pull a barbell out, that pull advanced gymnastics out, we have to ask ourselves, what's the maximum force production of a plank jack, of laying down on a plank and jumping your legs in and out? Yes, you could argue it's training the core. It's training a little bit of power with the plyometric jump, but how often do you find yourself in a plank position on the ground needing to produce power? Almost never in real life, and certainly never in competitive sport. So we have to ask ourselves too, if we're moving the barbells and advanced gymnastics out of the programming to make it more functional to real life, then what application does that movement have to function, which is primarily the type of movements that we see in functional fitness gyms that do not use a barbell. So consider that as well. My third point here is if these movements are not any more inherently dangerous, yes, they take more time to refine, but that is kind of the goal of CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting in general of always pursuing better movement patterns and getting stronger in these movement patterns. If these movements are just as functional as anything else we're doing in the gym, then what is this third factor? This third factor is that some of these movements, depending on who you are, they are fun, right? You remember fun. You used to have fun before you got really grumpy and you started screaming at people on social media. You remember what fun was like, right? And with fun, we're really talking about exercise adherence of people are not going to do stuff that they do not find to be fun. We need to be comfortable getting people to a point where they find a program that they enjoy, that they're going to come back again to perform 4 to 6 days per week. We know that's the sweet spot of training where we get the most bang for our buck at the lowest level of injury incidence. So if it's fun for people to snatch and handstand push up and it makes them more likely to come back to the gym, we really need to acknowledge that. And then if we take those out and that person quits the gym, we've done that person a disservice. They have been adherent to a training program, maybe for a long period of time, and then we change our program, we pull out the barbell, whatever, and they quit. They stop working out. We've really failed that person. And depending on the movements in the gym, a lot of people are going to find them fun and they're going to find other stuff not as fun, right? I love snatching. I love handstand push-ups. I love the assault bike. Those are the workouts that I see show up at the gym. I'm like, hell yeah, let's get after it. When I see thrusters and stuff like that, I'm not as jazzed. But everyone in the gym has movements like that. There are a couple things they really enjoy. There are a couple things they really hate. And they probably have some stuff in the middle that they're okay with it, right? But they keep coming to get better at the stuff they hate and definitely to get better at the stuff they're already good at. And that's what keeps them coming back. This is a really fantastic paper. I'll link this in the comments after the podcast. This is a paper by Heinrich et al. In 2014. It is specifically looking at exercise adherence and enjoyment in a training program. So a little bit older paper now, 9 years old, but it's a really good paper. This paper took subjects 3 times a week, put them in 60 minutes of CrossFit class with a coach, just like you would experience if you went to a CrossFit gym in real life. And then it stuck people in a group where they went 3 times a week, and they did kind of a traditional Globo gym session. For 60 minutes, they did some machine cardio, elliptical, walking on a treadmill, whatever. And then they did some machine weights. All of the people who came into the study were previously sedentary. They had no prior experience with any sort of movement or exercise. Average BMI over 40, average body fat over 40%. And they wanted to see, what did these people do after they were done with the program? Did they report enjoyment with the program? And most importantly, what was their adherence during the program and their ability to initiate continuing the program after the research study ended? What did they find? 100% of the folks in the CrossFit group intended to continue doing CrossFit after. Some had already bought memberships at the gym where the research study took place before the study even ended. Some of them had to have their data removed from the study because they were only supposed to go 3 times a week, and they loved it so much they bought memberships during the study and were found to be going more than 3 days a week, and it invalidated the data, and they had to drop them from the study. And that is fantastic. That's what we want to get people doing. We want to get them hooked on fitness. Compared now to the Globo Gym type group, what the researchers called aerobic and resistance training combined, ART. The ART group, only 55% of them said they intended to continue a program like that after the research study was done. About half of them said, yeah, as soon as this is done and I get my gift card, I'm not going to do this again, which is not great, right? You already have people getting active, creating a habit over the span of a research program. They're already doing it. They're doing it 3 days a week. But what you're having them do, they dislike so much, they have no intention to continue. So we need to be mindful that that is maybe the most important factor in these programs that we're not acknowledging. CrossFit would say CrossFit is for anyone, but it's not for everyone. That anybody can come in and start, but some people just may not enjoy it. And that's okay. Like, we're not going to get 100% of the people, and we need to recognize that. We can't push people. We can't force a square peg into a round hole, but we need to at least have people experience a wide variety of exercise programs, CrossFit, running, powerlifting, whatever. Try a lot of different stuff and just see what you like, because ultimately what you like is what you're going to do on a regular basis. And that seems to be one of the most important factors to long-term exercise adherence, getting people hooked on fitness and recognizing how powerful that is. I have a personal experience with this. I obviously have a huge bias walking the CrossFit 5 years ago now, weighing over 400 pounds, not being able to do anything, not being able to jump on a box. I had to jump on a plate. I couldn't run. I was incredibly weak. I couldn't lift overhead. I was way stiffer than I am now mobility wise. But just the progress over 5 years of being able to do muscle ups and double unders, handstand push-ups and snatch heavy now, and just recognizing, yes, these movements take time to refine, but that is the point of these programs, of slowly getting better at a lot of stuff across a lifespan. We're not trying to attract somebody to a fitness program, whatever it might be, for 6 months. Yes, that is the point of a research study. But in practical application in real life, we're trying to get these people to come 4 to 6 days a week for ideally the rest of their life, and recognizing along the way, they will continually improve on these movements. These movements do have a functional relationship to real life, and they may be fun, which is really important factor that we often neglect. So don't overlook these. If you go to a gym that has removed these movements, if you think these movements should be removed, if these athletes come to see you in the gym and you say, oh, your problem with your shoulder pain is you're doing snatching and regular people just shouldn't be snatching, then you need to recognize that you're part of the problem instead of helping that person figure out, why their snatch is maybe painful or not as good technique-wise, and working with them and their coach to keep them in the gym. They're already in the gym. The worst thing I think you could do as a physical therapist is stop somebody who's already being active. Only about 10% of our population is regularly active. We can't afford to have anybody rest or switch programs or quit programs, especially when they're already doing one, and especially when they've already been doing one for a long period of time. So the critiques: complex barbell movements, advanced gymnastics have no place in a training program for a recreational gym goer, just an average person, that they don't translate to real life function, and that they're somehow more injurious than other movements in the gym. The answers to that are: the research would not support that. These movements are functional. Creating power and strength with a vertical torso in a lot of these movements is important for real life function in sport, but it's also important for real life function in your day-to-day life, and that these movements can be fun. People have a handful of movements that they consider their wheelhouse. They look forward to them showing up in the workout, and rotating through all of these movements creates both a movement variation that makes this style of training safer, but it also improves exercise adherence, in some studies up to 100%, which is fantastic. So give this some thought. I'm happy to hear any comments or discussion you all have on this. And then head on over to Instagram and check out this video if you want to see that research study in exercise adherence. We're going to be on a live course this weekend. We have two from Fitness Athlete. We have Joe in Rockville, Maryland, and we have Zach up in Sudbury, Massachusetts, outside Boston. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Have a great Friday. Bye, everybody.